Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at disneyplus.com, and I'm here with the production designers on the brand new film Flamin Hot, which you can find right now on Hulu and on Disney Plus around the world. I just want to say thank you very much for taking your time out to speak to me today, and if you could maybe introduce yourselves and give an idea of what a production designer does on a film. Is that for you, Brandon?
Go ahead, Cabot, you take that. Cabot, you take
that. We'll go alphabetical. I'm Cabot McMullen, production designer, and a production designer basically creates the visual world for the movie, tells you something about the characters that the script can't tell you with words, essentially.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Brandon Mendez, we are visual storytellers here, putting it in the universe.
With Flaming Hot, one of the things I loved about the film was it kind of went over a couple of different eras. So how did you come up with the overall look of the film? So we'll start with you, Brandon.
Yeah, sure. I think it all started, Eva had a really strong opinion on, the way that we were going to tell this story and kind of dictating it through the eras, it's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s is where we kind of finished off the film. So, for us, it was really just getting it right and appropriate to Hispanic Chicano culture, and then kind of showcasing that throughout the film and getting into the factory. From the factory, we ended up kind of establishing that look as well. So I'll let you take that, Cabot. Sorry, I gotta fumble that there.
Yeah, research, and more research.
Yeah.
The anecdote we like to tell is that we couldn't find any, accurate research on the factory, on the Frito Lay factory, because it was basically industrial secrets, and Frito Lay didn't want any of their processes out into the world. So we stumbled on a YouTube that was made by a sixth grader on a class trip who somehow got through security and photographed everything, videoed everything. And so we took her film as sort of our main piece of research.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and so we dug in deep to every nook and cranny about the culture, about the world that we were entering in, and the periods too. Brandon gathered a lot of really, really valuable research on the Chicano culture from the 40s through the 80s.
Yeah,
and we really did our research so that we got it right.
That's cool. And one of the things I noticed with the film is like the colors kind of change throughout the film. Was that something that was intentional?
Yeah. We made a pretty good plan here to kind of showcase different colors, and something we wanted to do is show like a warmer palette when we were outside of the factory, and when we got into the factory, it was something where we would show it a little more sterile and cooler palette per se when you get into there. So as you know, when you're watching the film, the pacing is pretty quick. So you tend to go from factory to house, factory, home life, back and forth. And one thing we kind of played throughout that was getting like a warm tone, so you felt like you were in his world. And then when you got into the factory, it was like this cooler world that was unfamiliar to him. So, that was one way that we played with that.
Yeah, each character had their own color story in each period as well. We worked with Federico Cantini, our cinematographer, very closely on color temperatures with the lighting, all the practical lighting. So as Brandon mentioned, as you get into the factory, suddenly you're in like a halogen world, and everything's, much more antiseptic. And Eva had a really great idea that was super strategic to the color story, where the color of the Flamin Hot Cheeto, that bright red, wouldn't be revealed until it came off the assembly line for the first time. So there were a lot of sort of strategic color choices like that, and the way we delivered them.
That's cool. So I'm going to ask kind of, what was the biggest challenge that each of you had on kind of creating this film? We'll start off with you, Brandon.
I think one of the biggest challenges was us getting the factory right. As Cabot touched on earlier, we didn't have any proper research to get done what needed to get done. I mean, as far as like us finding stuff, we really relied on videos that were taken within the factory to replicate this machinery. I felt like a lot of the time, because we were playing this in the 80s, 90s, where we had to create this stuff, because nowadays it's all this modern machinery and the way that the factories run. So it wasn't something where we could buy the machinery. It was something that we had to make and replicate from a certain era. So I found that to be quite difficult. And also, there was a good amount of scenes in the film that I think 108 sets or something of that nature. And we had to really buckle down, and everything was period. So everything needed to be touched. Didn't matter if you showed a corner of a street. It was like, if that's a modern element in that street corner, that needed to be removed and replaced, and play that out through the entirety of the film, and you get busy.
And to you, Cabot, same question?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And then also, we had one location in particular that was a real challenge. In the script, if you read the script, there are 3 different markets scripted from different periods. And because of scheduling, we had to collapse them all into one location. And so just in terms of the creative choices that were made, as well as the scheduling and the turnarounds to flip these markets into other markets, that was, I think, really sort of the biggest friction point for us on the movie.
That's cool.
I mean, we had other challenges, like we were shooting in the middle of monsoon season, so most every afternoon, we would get these tremendous electrical storms, and everything had to shut down. And so the schedule started to, get impacted that way, and we had to make a lot of pivots.
We would see it happening from the office. We'd see the storm. We'd know where they're shooting. Our office had this viewpoint of Albuquerque, so we would see the storm coming in, and we're like, they're shooting over there. The storm is coming.
Right.
We could see the storm rolling in over the mountains. It was interesting.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you, obviously, this past weekend, it's just come out on Disney Plus and Hulu. Just after the weekend, it was revealed on social media that the film has been the most successful Searchlight film to go straight to streaming. So how does that make you feel? We'll start with you, Cabot.
Fantastic. Having Bob Iger at our premiere was really special. No, it's kind of a dream come true. This has been, for us, 2 years since we wrapped. I think for Eva, it's been easily 3+ years, and for Devon Franklin, I think it's been like 9 years or something.
Yeah, it's been
so to have all this, we all set out to make a great movie. Sometimes we're not so lucky, but to have it so well received is it's the cherry on top. It's really great.
That's cool. And the fact as well, it got one of the first film to be released on both Hulu and Disney Plus in the US at the same time, I would imagine, helped boost those numbers. Yeah. So to you, Brandon, the same thing. How does it make you feel?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Cabot said. You always set out to make a good movie, and sometimes you fall flat. But I felt like this, it's hitting the mark, and I think it shows sometimes you just want to have a feel good movie. I think right now I notice a lot, and I find myself watching these really dark films all the time, which I enjoy. But this is just a really feel good movie that you can sit back and watch with your family. And I think it kind of shows that sometimes we want the feel good story of someone in rags to riches. And those stories always pay dividends, I feel, and it's kind of showing now.
But it also validates what Eva and Devon and everyone have been saying all along, is that there's a huge audience for this.
Yeah.
An untapped, audience whose voices need to be heard, and this just proves it out. I mean, it's for real.
Yeah, I was getting calls from. I went to a predominantly, Hispanic school, and I was getting texts from friends like, "Oh my God, such a good movie, such a good movie, such a good movie." And people are blowing me up on Facebook and Instagram, and people are texting me who I haven't talked to or spoke to in years. But they were like, "Oh, I sat down with my kids. This was great." Or people. I think it was a very relatable story. So, and that's something that they were setting out to do, and I feel like it's doing it. So it's really good.
Yeah. And it's definitely made me, I want to try a Flamin Hot Cheeto now, because they're not so big over here in the UK. So I'm like, I'm going to try it next time and I see what on the shelves, or when I'm out in the States next. It's like, I need to try one of them, see what it's like.
Roger, you're missing out.
Yeah. Yeah, English delicacies, that's like for like spicy crisps is not really, but yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be. I can't wait to try that one. So Brandon, you've also worked on a number of different projects in the past, including Disney Plus original Black is King. How did it kind of differ working on like a music project to like a film?
Yeah, Black is King was its own project. I thought it was a great story. We had a tremendous time working on it. That team is great. This is more of a storytelling kind of narrative-based project, so you have a little more freedom when you get into this music video world. And although there was a story and a beginning and an end for Black is King, this was a very constructed narrative project, and it was really nice to get your hands on it and be able to tell a story and really dive into these characters and see who they are. And I was at Richard's house figuring out who he was as a person, but not just in the book, but you have to kind of see who he is, and then that's how you can like really develop these layers to who this person is. So that was something I really enjoyed, and doing narrative work comparatively to music videos or commercials, you get to dive in and really tell a story of someone that can be relatable to someone in the real world, which is why I feel like it is successful right now. I think it's very relatable. We tried to execute that the best that we could.
It's a fantastic film. And Cabot, kind of similar question to you, but you've worked on some series like the Mighty Ducks Game Changers. How does it differ, kind of making a film to a series? What kind of do you have to do differently?
Well, the most recent show I've done was Shrinking for Apple Plus, but similar with Game Changers, for Disney Plus. You're basically telling in 10 episodes, you're essentially doing a 5-hour movie, just in half-hour chunks. And so there's an art to it. And ironically, you can actually tell a more complete story, I think, in series work now than you can with features. But the great thing about features is you sit down and, you get the whole thing in one sitting and you're done. And then you can talk about it with all your friends. You don't have to, spend 6 months watching the whole thing. So,
yeah. And it's certainly a bit different when you end up binging a whole series in one day, but everybody else hasn't caught up yet, so it takes a while. But I'm going to ask you as our final question, and this will be to both of you. And I'm going to discount obviously Flaming Hot, and I think I probably need to discount Black is King and the Mighty Ducks Game Changers. But what has been each of your favorite Disney Plus originals so far?
Geez, let's see. Well, I love all the Mandalorian, Star Wars universe. I think I've probably gravitated toward that, other than the other titles, that are favorites that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's cool. And to you, Brendan?
Yeah, no, I'm a Mandalorian fan as well. Obviously, being in LA, it's pretty nice. We get to shoot on the volume here. I've done it a few times. And you get to pick the brains of these guys when you're on set. You're like, hey, so when they did The Mandalorian, how did they do that? It's pretty cool, to be on the volume where they shot it, photographs as you're coming into the stage. So there is like some, feel good about that. But obviously, like, Disney Plus films, I just love how they're redoing some of the stuff that I grew up watching, like Lion King and, Mulan and that kind of stuff. I felt like is really nice. And then now having a daughter, I'm like, let's watch this, So she gets a new version of something that I watched as a kid. And I always find that it's a feel good. It's warm,
Yeah, there's a lot of choice on there. Yeah, I'd be very impressed to see the volume and see how where they film the Mandalorian, because as you can tell, I'm a bit of a fan of that show as well. But again, thank you so much for taking your time out to speak to me about Flaming Hot. It's available now on Hulu and on Disney Plus. Fantastic film. Go check it out. And thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Go watch it.
Go watch it. Later.
Bye.